The result of Maddie turning on the beacon of the Rosarito Beach Hotel has the expected effect. A lot of people come looking for help. One of whom is Travis. And by reuniting, we find out the unfortunate path that Chris took and what brought Travis to the beach alone. It's Fear the Walking Dead. Season 2, Episode 13. Date of Death. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review of Fear the Walking Dead. So, there are spoilers ahead, just so you've been warned. Alright, so as you may notice, little different location than normal this week. I am on vacation in New Orleans, Louisiana, down in the Big Easy. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to miss out on these reviews. So it's just really a change of location today. And kind of a change of location for Travis as well. So as the episode opens up, of course, we have Travis showing up at the Rosarito Beach Hotel and reconnecting with Maddie. And through that, we get to hear the tale of what has happened to Chris. And it is the evolution or de-evolution of really the way people are viewing the world in this new Walker apocalypse. Last we saw, of course, Chris had shot the farmer there with the spring break bros, leaving Travis to sort of deal with the new Chris and really try to wrap his brain around it. And so we're really dealing again with two ways of approaching the world. Are we trying to hold on to the trappings of civilization that we have developed over the past several hundred years and really the appreciation of life, the importance of each individual? Or is it really a new world where we need to cast that aside and maybe go back to more of a primitive, medieval, prehistoric almost way of viewing things, that it's really a kill or be killed? And all of this really frames the primary conflict between Travis and Chris. Travis is really trying to be the father, be the guide, and really show Chris what the new world is. But we've already had problems with Chris. Chris has already gone down a very dark direction. And as much as Travis is trying to pull Chris out of it, we know for the most part from the beginning is that Chris is really lost. And much of this episode is actually just Travis trying to grasp that. Chris is connecting in with his new friends. And a couple of really interesting scenes between Travis and Chris talking about their history. For instance, when we had Chris explaining to Travis, hey, remember when I was a kid, remember when I was in middle school and I was beaten up by the football guys, you told me to just blend in. And in some ways that is exactly what she's doing now. Of course, not as Travis insisted, I wanted you to blend in to pretend to be them, not actually become that. But in this type of extreme world, those are really difficult lines to see the difference on. And again, for Chris is a troubled youth, for sure. A lot of difficulties. We find out that, when he was with his mom, when he was younger, he was a happy kid. The divorce really damaged Chris. He was lost. He did not have a sense of direction, a sense of place. Now comes this apocalypse where he can really express himself in his own way, where his sociopathic tendencies, because let's be honest, this is sociopathy. This is a disconnect from empathy, from the regards of any other person. We saw at the moment that he shot the farmer, there was almost a smile in his face. Later on that day, after his buddy shot, the spring break dudes and Chris are just out having chicken, having a few beers, having a laugh. They've just killed a guy. Their friend is wounded in the barn, and yet there seems to be no concern or thought about the reality of either of those. And it's just in a beautiful scene afterwards where Travis got rid of a beer, a good beer, one of the last beers in the apocalypse as far as he knows. No, that was just a funny little scene moment. But that starts to frame it, and it's in that scene where we really start to see the change of Chris. not so much as the separation from his father, but really more of a switch between who is the parent and who is the child, who is the advisor and who is the one that needs to listen. Chris sees exactly who these guys are, and he is more than happy to embrace that sort of kill or be killed, el numero uno comes first type of approach, and really letting Travis know at that point, hey, your way of looking at things aren't going to hold out. You did a great thing saving James, saving our wounded buddy there, but you can't throw your morality on everyone else. This is not going to work that way. The problem is Travis is still seeing that he can affect who Chris is, that he can alter Chris's path by advice or trying to be the stand-up parent. At this point, Chris has already made his choices. He made his choice actually way back at the mid-season finale when he was walking off. It wasn't until Travis came and caught up with him and had that sort of conflict that brought them back together. For that, Chris was already leaving. He was already going to be off on his own. He already knew that it was just going to be him. This was just kind of those last little breaths of trying to hold things on. Now, of course, all these conflicts really come to a head when a week later, despite the time that they have tried to give James to heal, he is still too wounded to move. Everybody wants to leave the farmhouse. There isn't really a main motivation to do so. As Travis points out, they still have resources. They still are protected. They haven't run into any walkers at this point. So in some ways, they're in a very safe place to do so. But of course, you can't talk anything to these spring breakers. They want to get back to the U.S. They want to get back to San Diego. And they're really unwilling to hear how the world is. They're not listening to Travis, of course. And even Chris isn't really willing to acknowledge what he himself knows. He could just put it off, well, we weren't close enough. We didn't see, blah, 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 blah. But once they try and move James and figure out that he's really too wounded to do so, they are actually willing to have that discussion of should we just kill him? Not because he's dying, but because he is dead weight. I mean, as James put it, is they may not know that I'm not dying. They may believe that you are, so the reality of it doesn't matter. But I don't think it's quite that much. I mean, and part of the clue comes in this story of Troy, their other buddy that had to die. They found him when they were down in Cortez. He had gotten bitten. It was early. They didn't know when he was going to change. They didn't really know all of the specifics of, the turning into a walker bit. But Troy didn't want to turn. And they made that promise. They made that commitment is don't let me do it. So when it got to that time, it was supposed to be Brandon. Brandon didn't really have it in him at that moment. So James had to step up and do it and kill Troy. So now that James is the one that's wounded, I think part of Brandon's motivation to even have that discussion is in a way to sort of make up for his inability to kill Troy, to do what he was supposed to do then. It lets him now do it, and it also removes the person that did have to step up and do it as well, in some way sort of regaining a certain, manness in him, masculinity. It's boosting that up. Of course, Travis isn't going to allow this to happen, and this sets up the final real conflict between him and Chris, where Chris just openly takes advantage of his father's love. He takes advantage of his father's belief and desire to try and change things. Where he goes in, and as soon as he walked in with that food, that he wasn't being straight. We all knew it. But his willingness to really put it down. I mean, Travis searches him. Travis is trying to be very cautious, but it's still his son. That is still going to be his weak point. And it was, I love the exchange in the sense that of Chris really putting himself out there. I mean, for a moment, even us as an audience, I think, expecting him to do something wrong, still bought into it. When he was willing to say, I know what you're trying to teach me. And Travis says, oh yeah, what is it? I'm not just going to give this to you. You actually have to tell me what is it that I'm trying to teach you. Really have to convince. And Chris isn't dumb. He's smart and he knows his father. He knows exactly what his father wants him to hear. That you're trying to teach me that all life is precious. That this is an important thing, that we don't just kill. and then suckers him in with the "I love you, Dad." It was just so hard, because that's the one thing that he wants. That's that final connection that we have, and it's not true. It is just an excuse for him to grab him and to let his guys come in and finally finish the job with James. The final day when they know that they are leaving. Of course, Travis is upset. As he tells Maddie later on, "Yes, I wanted to say, and I realized that after he had left, I should have said that I love you." Which is interesting, of course, because that is the very word that Chris had used kind of against him. But you can't really expect that to happen as much. Even at this point, Travis is trying to reach out and say, "Look, we can still do it together." But that road is over. There is the need to, at that stage, let go. Accept the fact that Travis has one view of the world and Chris has another. And even if Travis sacrificed him, let him kill James just to go on with him, said whatever he needed to do, there was still going to be that residual conflict. The two of them needed to leave, and that ends up being the big conversation at the end with Maddie. When Maddie is trying to give him relief and say, "No, there wasn't anything else that you could have done." And really, that's the same thing. The great thing about that last final scene there is because while Maddie is trying to give absolution to Travis, everything she is saying is exactly applicable to her life as well. Travis needed to let go, accept that Chris was a different person that needed to live his own life, and as much as he wanted to be part of it, as much as he wanted to protect it, they were on two separate paths. The only thing that he could do is let him go. And for Maddie, it's the same thing with Nick, because she has spent all this time pursuing him. Even the last one with the whole crazy scene in the supermarket. Could have gotten herself killed, couldn't have gotten Elena killed, could have denied the medical needs for Strand, risked everything in this crazy pursuit of trying to find Nick, when the reality is, at this stage, that's exactly what she needs to do. What Travis needed to do with Chris is let him go, and that's what Maddie needs to do, is let Nick go. There's actually no way of moving forward without it. And this does give her that moment to finally connect with Alicia, to really see Alicia for what she has done to her. These acceptance of where we are and where we're going, and to deal with the truth of how we are, even telling the whole story of the death of Alicia's father right there, was important, because it's the only way, by getting rid of all of these lies, that we're able to move forward, that we're able to see where everybody is and who they are, and let them make their choices. Do I want to stay or do I want to go? And to be okay with that. And that, like I said, is really the main thrust of this particular episode. It's not only just the separation of Chris and Travis, but seeing how people are seeing the world, and that as much as you may want to change them, ultimately we're going to have to, if we love them, let them go. All right, and just a couple of small bits and questions here. One, how did they just let Travis in through the gate and not the entire mass of people that were right next to him? I mean, really, they're all pushing against the gate. The chain was there, I get it, try and squeeze one person in, but I just thought that it was going to be quite difficult to just try and get Travis in. It seemed all of the other people were just like, okay, well, if you want to go in, we'll wait out here. That one long sequence where Travis in the beginning he was going through the whirlwind of craziness, and then he just had to focus and turn and help James. And that was understandable, because that was an emergency. He was bleeding out. But he pretty much avoided Chris, and did through most of the day. In fact, went and buried the farmer, and built a whole cross and gravestone and marker and everything, and then still checked up on James long before he even took time to talk to Chris. And I thought that was actually really well done, in the sense that with all of that crazy, with the intensity of those moments, I think he needed the time. I think he needed the time to get his mind wrapped around what was going on, so he knew, at least formulated a plan, an idea of, now I have to deal with Chris. What the hell am I going to say to him? How am I supposed to snap him out of it? Because at that point, I think he knew he had lost him. But I did enjoy the fact that they gave the time. They gave him something to do to try and occupy himself until he could get to that moment where he could have that conversation and discussion with Chris, as opposed to kind of rushing it unnecessarily, especially while James was bleeding there. So one, I like the fact that they did it because it made sense. And two, I think from a thematic standpoint, I think it was an appropriate move for Travis to really take that time before trying to reapproach the craziness that unfortunately is his son. Hey bros, you got yourself a wounded buddy in the back? Maybe not try driving like a lunatic on the dirt road. It's one thing that James is wounded back there and you've got to be careful, but they did not seem to take any care once they got on the road. They weren't slowing down. They were kind of doing like wheelies, burning out. I mean, if I had an upset stomach, I wouldn't be doing well, let alone a bullet wound in my leg. So they're just thinking of the future. If you're a buddy, if you're a friend and you've got a wounded guy in the back, just slow it down a little bit. Just take your time. Also, you don't want to waste gasoline. Not in the apocalypse. The title of the episode, Date of Death, deals with the fact that Travis no longer knows what date it is. Which I can mostly believe. It's been a long month, but it has been about a month. It was about 3 weeks before. Travis talked about being there at the farm for a week, so we're probably looking at about a month after the apocalypse, means this is about the time that Rick Grimes is waking up over in Georgia. So just a heads up timeline of where we are right now. The shot of Travis guarding over James's body at night in front of the fire in the barn was beautiful. It was a beautiful shot, and the great creepy kind of off-key music really just showing that twist of psyche and connection. Really just all of that, just from a visual standpoint, really brought up the emotions, brought up the concern and worry, and it was just a beautiful shot of just them sitting and the darkness surrounding them right there. I thought it was just, God, that is just beautiful camera work right there. And finally, Travis, no supplies when you leave the farm. No attempts at water, no water bottles, no food, no backpack, nothing. You're just gonna wander off towards the beach without anything. This is what got him in trouble leaving the ranch at the time when he first went after Chris. He didn't seem to have socks on, and that tore up his feet. Now he's leaving and he doesn't have any supplies. I know the mindset that he is in, and maybe it's almost a slightly suicidal, but I just think he should have been smart enough to, I mean, look, at least grab an energy bar or something. And so just when you thought it was the end, we get that last final shot as people are heading up to the gates of the Rosarito Beach Hotel. Two of those are our spring break bros, but there is no sign of Chris. And that's where we end it, and so that's where we're going to be heading into next week. More people are heading towards the hotel. This is going to create a bigger problem. They're trying to do their checkup of the people as they're holding them down in the parking lot. But how many of them are wounded? You only need 1 or 2 walkers in to really start things going all over again. There's going to be new people heading in towards the hotel, and who knows what kind of attention that is going to bring. But again, with the Spring Break brothers there, we're definitely looking at a big conflict between Travis and them. There is backup, there is family, and while Travis may still be holding on to a certain moral center, I don't think those around him, specifically Maddie, is going to hold on to the same center. So we have some big conflicts that will be coming up next week. If you did enjoy this review, I would appreciate a like. You can go ahead and hit that subscribe button right up over here. We'll put it right here over my shoulder. Go ahead and press that. Come back every week. Well, again, next week we are ending Fear the Walking Dead. Will be the last episodes, but we will be picking up Season 7 of The Walking Dead starting October 23rd. We are right in the middle of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We just had the big premiere episode. If you are a Marvel fan, I highly, highly recommend it. The move to the 10 p.m. time slot has opened up a world of possibilities, and they are embracing them fully. I think it's a great change, and it is giving a great, wonderful look to a show I love. So you can come back and check that out as well. And then, of course, at the end of the month, we have Luke Cage coming out on Netflix. It is coming out on midnight on the 30th, so you can come and check that out. And we'll be doing reviews of that here. I'm going to try and figure out, might be doing every 3 or 4 episodes. I'll figure out exactly which way to do it, but keep looking forward and I will tell you more about it coming up. Now, you can of course always catch me on Twitter and now on Instagram at Darren Jakes right there. You can go ahead and check it out right there. Anyway, that's going to be it. I will be back at home next week, so we'll be back to the old regular setup. Hope you guys are doing well. I am D, and I am out of here. I'll see you guys next week. Take it easy. Bye-bye.